Hello and welcome back to Mocha Says. I am reviewing Married to Medicine Part 2. I'm a little late, but I'm getting caught up this week and I will be just on time for Real Housewives of Atlanta, the new season that's coming out, I believe Sunday or Monday, I believe, or maybe this weekend. But either way, I'll be all caught up by then. And yeah, so we're going to get into Married to Medicine Part 2 and see what Mocha has to say, see what I have to say. So we left off when Jackie and Simone were on the couch making up. Jackie finally took a stand and said that Dr. Simone was not a threat. She did not push Dr. Heavenly. Everyone else in there agrees that Dr. Simone was not a threat. She didn't push Dr. Heavenly. And then Contessa, she chimes in and she says, I have to say, this is such a blaring Blaren. She said this is such a blaring situation. I guess blaring stands for like a Karen, but when it has to be a black woman. And she calls out heavily and says, her just being so hyperbolic and dramatic and about Dr. Simone's aggression is crazy. And then it's also even crazier coming from her, someone who has such a lack of self-control, who is so reactive with her emotions, who is actually very aggressive herself. Yeah, I'm so glad Dr. Contessa said that, because I said that in my other recap of the part one of the reunion, that is such a very, very much giving Karen, white woman, fake tears, playing the victim. It's very ugly. And I was like, why is Dr. Emily acting this way? But definitely giving blaring. So shout out to Dr. Contessa for calling that out. Love that. And so they show the men talking backstage, and there's Curtis and Eugene. They're sort of having a back and forth now, pretty much about how Toya wasn't telling the truth and she lied on him, talking about he was touching multiple women. Pretty much, I feel like Curtis feels like a hit dog because, he was caught cheating on Dr. Jackie, and he did pull Toya into his lap. And it was very uncalled for. He pulled Toya into his lap and he doesn't want to admit it because Toya called him out. And yeah, I feel like he's feeling a little bit of shame about that. So him and Eugene are going into, I feel like Eugene is handling himself very well because he's getting a lot of heat from really the two men and then also some of the ladies, of course. But anyway, he's getting heat from the ladies for standing up for Toya and getting heat from Curtis for Toya calling out him touching her, which he did, and he pretty much just sort of deny it, which is weird. Not apologizing, which is weird. And also, Steve is mad he had to buy a ticket to the Met Gala. Andy asked them about health trends on social media and pretty much asked how have those impacted patients that they help in their practice. And Dr. Jackie, she doesn't give a specific answer, which I wish she did, because that was a really good question. But she pretty much says, they'll look up things on TikTok and they want her to do certain things with the baby and all that. But she was very vague. She wasn't specific. Dr. Simone, she gives a more specific answer or reply. She says, she's had one situation where a woman, she was delivering a baby and she wanted to hold off on delivery because she didn't want the baby to be a certain zodiac sign, which is actually crazy. But that woman was about to pop. So, that's very crazy. Anyways, that was a good question. And then he talks about, they have a conversation about the horrible, horrible changes that the government is making now to student aid, cuts in student aid, cuts in DEI, just horrible, horrible decisions from the government and how they impact Black professionals and students and Black people and communities. And they talk about how there is period poverty, infant mortality, and there's a rise in HIV and some other things. And yeah, it's just pretty horrible. And them bringing that up, I couldn't help but just think about how they gave those two ladies that measly $5,000 for a med scholarship for medical school. But yeah. Anyways, that was a good thing. Dr. Contessa, she says that PrEP is not only because of the rise in HIV. It's important for people to know that PrEP is not only for homosexual men or gay men. It's also for anybody who's having sex to protect them. So anyone having sex, like casual sex, should be on PrEP. All right. And so next they move the men out and they're all looking pretty nice. Steve, he stands out the most because he's wearing like this white suit, has like red specks on it. And then Andy's so funny. He calls him out and says, yeah, hey, Steve. He's like, I see you have your ice on, talking about his necklace and his jewelry, I guess. And he's like, and he had some cleavage because he had his shirt buttoned down. And then he asked Dr. Scott about his eye situation. And he says it's getting better. He only has like 2, I think, LASIK eye surgery. He has 2 surgeries left for his eyes. And then they get into the conversation about Lapgate. And this is the situation where Curtis put his hands on Toya and pulled her into his lap. And Curtis, he's still going around things, not wanting to admit to it. They're just going back and forth about that. And Curtis just needs to give it up. He needs to apologize. I just don't understand. Like, yeah, Curtis, he's this season he's been on some high horse, and it's really just not a good look. Apologize and move on. Apologize and move on. And stop saying Toya's lying because she's not. And then they clip back to Toya and Jackie backstage because the ladies are backstage at this moment. And Toya's like talking and she's like, this is your fault. She just straight up says it's your fault. And she's like, excuse me, it's my fault. She's like, yeah, because you said Curtis didn't put his hands on me. You said Curtis didn't pull me into his lap, and he did. And Jackie really doesn't have anything to say to that because it's true. So it's all just like crazy. It's very cringy and foolishness, the whole situation. And then they move to Damon on stage. Andy asks Dr. Damon about his son. And, he's very vague. Being very vague, him and Dr. Heavenly, about the son that got arrested. But they say that he says that, he had mental health issues. And he helped him the best that he could. And that, I just wish he would give. I wish he would have gave more details because they just keep saying mental health issues. I understand their privacy if they want to keep that private, but as an audience member, as a viewer, I want to know the details. Like what kind of help, what kind of issues, what happened? I want to know. We want to know. Steve and Curtis, throughout the time the men are on stage, Steve and Curtis, they're arguing with Eugene and they get into it. And Steve, like I said, he resorts to ad hominem attacks because he's not making sense. You should have just paid. He's being very passive aggressive. He calls Dr. Eugene Mr. Bush. And I have to say, Eugene is handling it very well. He's being very mature. He's being very calm because he knows what Steve is saying is just like ridiculousness. He doesn't want to admit that he should have bought a ticket. He wanted special treatment and he's trying to make a scene for whatever reason. I don't understand why, but he's trying to make a scene. Maybe more camera time, maybe trying to lock in for a spot for next season for him and his wife. Who knows? But, they do that. It wasn't too long, the segment with the men, it wasn't too long. They end up having the women come back on stage and joining the husbands. And Andy asked them about wife and girlfriend duties because I guess that was a big topic this season. And he asked, what is something your wife does now that you would not have asked her to do when she was a girlfriend? And the first person he asks is Curtis. And Dr. Heavenly is like, oh, you're asking the wrong person. And Curtis says sex. Okay, whatever. I'm not saying I don't believe them because, things were a lot more, conservative. They're a little older, so I could believe they didn't have sex until they were married. But I don't know. It's just like coming from you when you cheat on your wife, and that may not have been the only time you cheated on your wife. Like, and then you clearly flirting. I feel like that was a flirtatious moment when he pulled Toy into his lap. Like, come on, like get it together. Anyways, whatever, that's fine. And then Cecil and Simone, he says, Cecil says Simone was a little more mild mannered when they were dating. And he was right a lot more. And Simone just laughing. She was like, I had to get my ring. Yeah, and then they talk to Steve and Mimi and talk about the challenges they have being a couple with a child who has um serious disabilities. And when a couple is married and they have a child with who is like highly disabled, a lot of times those marriages don't last. And so Andy asked them what they do to make their marriage last. And they have check-ins with each other. Dr. Mimi said she goes to therapy every week because she knows she has to stay on top of things and be very preventative. And I have to say, they seem like they're very good parents. Just from what I've seen on TV. They seem like they're very good parents, and they seem like they're very supportive of each other, even though I don't really like how they're sort of moving with the group, especially on the reunion. But other than that, I do like their marriage and their family life from what we've seen. And Simone makes it clear that she is not paying Cecil's bills and that he has two jobs. She didn't specify what they were, and we know he's a real estate agent. Um, but she says that they split the household bills and that the kids are not cut off yet, but they are making gradual changes with boundaries and such. They go to Quad and they revisit Curtis saying that Quad and King were having fertility issues because they were living out of order and God was pretty much punishing them. I get so cringe every time they talk about that because Curtis, I don't understand. I understand like things are more, they like maybe more traditional back then and things are like getting more progressive now in a lot of ways. But the fact that he said that is so crazy to me. Because how do you know what's going on in God's mind and what he wants for people? It was just such a like judgmental moment, and I feel like it's sort of a reach when he said that. It was sort of a reach in his mind to protect himself from the shame and embarrassment that he has felt from being caught cheating on his wife, and that he has felt from being called out by Toya for putting his hands on other women on the cast and for pulling Toya into his lap, which was very inappropriate. I feel like he's sort of been trying to offhand that shame and push it onto someone else or sort of make himself not look as bad. I feel like that may have been, whether conscious or subconscious, that may have been what he was doing when he said that to King. But anyways, he apologized, so that's good. And then they get into this ticket situation and they're going, talking to Steve, and it's just a whole argument, a whole back and forth about the Met Gala. And pretty much they ask, like, why didn't you guys just buy a ticket? And he and Mimi say that they were targeted. It was very strategic that Eugene came up to them and asked them why they didn't buy a ticket and told them they needed to buy a ticket. And Mimi says that their presence, her and her husband's presence, intimidates Toya and Eugene and brings out their insecurities. She says they intimidate Toya and Eugene and bring out their insecurities. I'm sorry, I feel like that is a reach to the moon, and I don't feel like they intimidate Toya and Eugene. I'm just really confused. Like, I don't understand. Anyways, it's so weird because they feel like because they donated $5,000 last year that should cover their cost of entry this year. Just buy a ticket. They were $150. I don't understand. And then Toya and Simone were on Married to Medicine recently, and Andy asked, did they ever make a donation for this year's Met Gala? And they never did. So they never ended up making a donation, which is pretty much on the show. They were bragging about, they were saying, would you rather us buy buy tickets for $150 each, or would you rather us make a big donation? Which they didn't end up making a donation. So I don't know. It's just a lot of talk for no reason. So, they're going in on Toya a little bit. And Toya says she did exactly what Jackie has done when she has been planning this Met Gala for the past years. She says that she collected their money and she didn't give them details until the very last minute, because Jackie has been doing that for the past couple of years the Met Gala has been going on, which I only think it's been going on for, I don't know, 3 years or so. And Jackie, she's shaking her head in agreement with Toya. So yeah, and Eugene, he says he only got involved at the Met Gala because Toya was upset because she said that none of the other ladies were helping her. And so he wanted to support her, and he told the lady at the front desk to let him know when someone comes in who's not on the list. That's the only reason why he got involved, to help and support his wife. And I don't know, it sounds legitimate to me. He even apologized to Steve and Mimi at the Met Gala about how they were feeling called out. And I don't think he even made a big scene. He didn't make a big scene. He wasn't doing it in front of everybody. So all of this whole issue seems like a reach when it comes to Mimi and Steve buying tickets. Like, I feel like Steve and Mimi, they're making an issue out of it when it shouldn't be an issue. Now, them feeling like they weren't, the rest of the ladies feeling like they weren't involved, I feel like that is sort of, I feel like communication could have been better. I do. But I also feel like maybe some of the ladies, they don't like Toya because of the hard time she's been giving them the past few years on Met Gala. And I do think they're sort of trying to teach her a lesson. And so I do feel like maybe there's a mix of them being upset that they weren't involved. But Toya said Jackie's been doing it the same way. So I feel like Toya, she's sort of justified in that to some extent. But I also feel like maybe the ladies were also getting on her and sort of, they were trying to teach her a lesson. So maybe they weren't being as cooperative and kind and understanding as they may have been if it was someone else leading it. So, yeah. And then Andy, he asked to be included next year for the Met Gala so that he asked to be known when the Met Gala is going on so he can donate, because I think in the back of his mind, he's thinking just like I'm thinking, they're pathetic for giving that measly 5K to those two medical school students. Those 5K scholarships were pathetic and they should be ashamed. I'm disappointed in them for donating that. These when people are rich. They're rich medical professionals, but they're not only medical professionals, they're not only high earning medical professionals, they are also entrepreneurs, and they are also famous reality TV stars. They could have gave them more money. And I feel like it's just so embarrassing to me, but I feel like in the back of Andy's mind, he sort of feels like, wow, 5K. So he says that he will pitch in next year to help. He didn't say anything about the 5K, but I feel like in his mind, he's sort of thinking about how pathetic of a scholarship that was to give to those ladies for med school. So the men leave and the cameras follow them backstage, and Steve, he just can't give it up with Eugene. He keeps picking a fight with Eugene. And so they go backstage and he brings up, right when he walks into the room with the other guys, he's like, Toya has talked about me with my shirt off. She's talked about how I'm attractive, and I know it makes you insecure, Eugene. I know it makes you insecure, blah, blah, blah. You have a little man complex. And I'm just like, Lord have mercy. And I have to say, again, Toya, because they show a clip of Toya sitting next to Eugene in the confessional, talking about how the only person who needs to have their shirt off at the beach is, she said King. And then she was like, oh, and also Steve or Steven, whatever his name is. And she said that right in front of Eugene, and Eugene's like, okay. But I'm just like, I'm like, Toya, you give them ammo. You say these things about your husband, and they throw it back. They use it against Eugene and yourself whenever they feel the need to, whenever they want to. So you got to stop saying this stuff about your husband. I have to say, yes, Toya has been taking accountability for how she talks to and about her husband. But I just have to say, you have to admit that you're part of the reason. You give them ammo. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. The way you talk about Eugene is so rude. It's so rude. You got to stop doing that, girl. So anyways, Steve is just taking that, throwing it at Eugene. Eugene, he's handling it very well. He's like, okay, you're throwing a tantrum. Let me leave and I'll come back when you stop having a tantrum. And he leaves, and Steve is so annoying. Steve is so annoying. He's so corny to me. Like, he gets some food and he's like talking about he's hangry and like, I'm hangry. You're gonna get all this, Eugene, all this issue, blah blah blah. And he's like laughing and stuff, like he's cool. It's just like so corny to me. It's not cute. Um, but yeah. So they go back to the stage where the ladies are with Andy and they're giving their closing remarks. Um, they're giving their closing remarks, and Contessa says, so they're talking about Heavenly. He asks Heavenly, he's like, so if you run for Congress and you win, um, I'm assuming you can't be on the show anymore. And she's like, yeah, probably. And then here comes Contessa. Well, I guess this is goodbye. She says, well, I guess this is goodbye. And they all start laughing. And Andy, he's even like, finds it funny. He's like, oh, you're trying to push her out now? And she's like, no. She's like, no, I'm saying. She says all seriously, no, I'm saying, like, she's going to win. So yeah, we should say bye now because she's going to win. But I do believe Contessa was being shady in that moment. She was trying to hide it, but that was funny. So yeah, they're going around saying their closing remarks, and Jackie thanks, Dr. Simone she thanks Dr. Jackie for saying the truth about what happened between her and Heavenly. And Dr. Simone and Dr. Heavenly, they didn't get into it. They get into one little petty argument, just a petty argument, and then they get to Jackie, and for a closing remark, she gives this fake positive statement about them moving in love, and she asks Simone to unblock her on social media. And then Quad gives her closing statement, and she gets emotional and says she came up through the trenches, etc. And she says that she loves them and that that group is a family. So that was cute. They close, and that was the end of Married to Medicine. I thought the reunion was good. I think that only 2 episodes for the reunion was all that was needed. I think the ladies brought the drama. I think the men brought the drama. I think Steve and Mimi were working overtime. I think that Curtis and Dr. Jackie, especially Curtis, particularly Curtis, definitely was feeling the embarrassment and shame this year. I feel like Toya did a good job holding her own. I think she did a good job taking accountability for, disrespecting Eugene and talking to him crazy and talking about him crazy. But yeah, I mean, she has to understand that when she talks about him, the other ladies aren't going to grab that and put it in her back pocket, put it in their back pocket for them to use whenever they want to, because you're the one who opened up Pandora's box. Simone, I mean, I mean, Simone, I guess her and Cecil aren't going to break up. I sort of was, I wouldn't have been surprised if she would have asked for a divorce, but she didn't. So I guess they're still going strong, which is good. And yeah, Dr. Jackie, I don't know. I feel like Curtis and Dr. Jackie need to sort of mind their business. I think that, yeah, I don't even know. I don't feel like Dr. Jackie brought much this season, but that's that. I like Angel, Brandy. I mean, I feel like we didn't get to know Brandy. We didn't really get to know her kids much, her family, her husband. I guess I would have liked to see that more. She was definitely not a favorite of mine, but I wouldn't mind seeing her again and learning more about her. Quad is Quad. She's not going anywhere. I think she is just it's like essential part of this group. She is going to stay with the group. She has good relationships with everybody, whether she is in a relationship or married to medicine or not, like literally married to medicine. And yeah, Dr. Heavenly, I mean, I'm curious to see how this election goes, but I mean, Dr. Heavenly, I have to say she is entertaining. She's a bit much, but she is interesting to watch. And Dr. Contessa is my favorite out of the ladies, I have to say. I think so. And she's the one I would trust the most. If I was to get a doctor out of the ladies, I would trust her the most. And out of the men, I would trust Eugene the most. But yeah, I like Dr. Contessa, I do. So yeah, that was that. I thought it was good. And I'm gonna be finishing up Real Housewives of Beverly Hills tomorrow, and I'm going to, like I said earlier, I'm going to be prepared and we're going to be ready and giving our recaps on Real Housewives, this new season of Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'm very excited about that. So I hope you guys come along with me, come back, comment, like, and subscribe. And let me know what you thought of this season, what you thought of the reunion. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.